Welcome back to the Unlearning Curve podcast and the Desert Sanctuary podcast. The second part of our recording concerning Tim Whitaker and the new Evangelicals, featuring Megan Benninger, talking about the 8 ways to enable an abuser. I think you're going to like this.
Although many crave truth and understanding, the systems we engage with often inhibit genuine freedom in our daily lives. As we distance ourselves from organized religion, patterns emerge. We feel that recognizing these issues requires us to examine every facet of our lives, such as toxic leadership, toxic or dangerous organizations, our mental health, the things we learn or unlearn on the journey. Regardless of your belief system, we encourage you to unlearn anything that does not serve you well. This will promote healing and reveal a new path forward. J.D. Forehand is a son of a preacher and an overseas educator. Stuart Deloney is a former pastor and blogger podcaster at Snarky Faith. Carl Forehand, a former pastor, runs the Desert Sanctuary, a home for spiritual nomads, with his wife Laura. Disclaimer: we see ourselves as practitioners on a journey of discovery rather than as experts. While we strive to share our experiences and the lessons we are unlearning transparently, we will connect you with professionals when necessary, and trusted guides will arrive as needed. Please send Carl or Stuart your thoughts, concerns, and necessary updates. You can also reference our Facebook page, The Unlearning Curve.
Yeah, so let's shift gears a little bit. Since we have Megan here, we should get some information from her. She has a lot of experience with abuse and this within the church, but also with the Baptist Accountability Group that her and her husband run, the database, offenders. So we want to get as much information as you can. Megan, tell us, maybe in a broader sense, what do you want to tell us today about all this stuff?
Well, I do have some observations about this situation that really follows the playbook of all of the stories that I have personally experienced. And then with the database, we've heard hundreds, maybe thousands of stories by now, and just have a real good handle on how this plays out. And it's really shocking how identical it is every single time. I mean, down to the words used and just the methods and whatever. So I did a Facebook post on this back on March 18th, and I'm just going to read from that. And I said, since the release of the TNE investigation report, here are some things I see playing out among TNE supporters that remind me of how abuse exposure plays out in congregations of evangelical churches. The first one is public apologies are expected to be accepted at face value before any sustained actions towards repentance or reconciliation can be observed. And I know in my last situation in a Baptist church, I mean, you were supposed to forgive immediately, even if you didn't know all the facts, even if, you were just, this is what Jesus expects, 70 times 7. You need to forgive. And that's that,
Heard people call that the F word. Some survivors called forgiveness the F word.
Yeah. And I've come to believe that forgiveness is not even necessary for healing, honestly, depending on your definition of forgiveness. I mean, I think it's necessary to have acceptance and, be able to move on with your life. But I don't think forgiveness is
it's not forgetting.
Mandatory. Sorry, it's not what?
It's not forgetting.
Right, it's not forgetting.
It's not at all. No,
certainly.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. And not releasing. I don't think it's releasing the person from, some sort of like restitution or a need for something. And even then, it's up to you if you want to forgive or not. And and survivors can't be rushed in that. It's just, yeah. The second thing is members and followers are inclined to give the benefit of the doubt to the accused rather than the victim. People feel so sorry for the accused and all the exposure is putting him through. Hardly anyone mentions what the victim must be feeling and what toll it must be taking on her.
Mm.
And I think people really aren't aware of the toll it takes on, I will say, the victim or the whistleblowers, like both. If they're a different, like in my case, I've been a whistleblower where I was not the victim. And it is insane what happens. I mean, in our case, we were stalked, we were doxxed, there were screws put in our oldest daughter's tires of her car, like life-threatening things, you know. So really bad stuff like this happens, and people don't realize how bad it gets. And it's like the mafia. It really is. It's insane. And even if it doesn't get to that extent, just the constant attacks of you're lying, how could you do this? And really weighs on the person speaking out. It is really devastating.
Yeah. And is it devastating? I mean, do you feel physical symptoms from that? Is it psychological? Is it all of the above? I mean,
All of the above. I had a complete physical, mental, spiritual breakdown after our last whistleblower. When we came forward that our pastor was a convicted child molester, and we found out, and the church had been hiding it. And yes, I just shut down. I mean, I didn't know how to cope. It was horrible. And I see that happening here for RV. I know they just did a Facebook post on their, or I don't know if it was just Facebook, it was Instagram too, on their TNE reckoning pages, that they were stepping back from social media because it's just too brutal and they need time to heal,
hmm,
because it is, the attacks and things are constant.
yeah. And if it's not something as severe as, well, I don't want to say that either, but if it's not rape, if it's not people molesting each other, then how does that affect? I mean, for the whistleblower, I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I'm just trying to do what's right, right? But victims and survivors like Adele, it's sometimes, I don't know how to say this. It's almost like it's worse. It's not a crime or something that's really illegal, that I could possibly convict them of. But now,
Well, and it makes me think of in domestic violence cases, if you study abuse, there's covert abuse, which is the emotional abuse. And women will say, I wish he would hit me so that I'd have something to go to the police with. Like it would be better if he would physically abuse me because I could do something about it. When it's this manipulation and this constantly, the gaslighting, all the techniques they use, like it's horrible. And it does have a physical effect, right? I mean, we know that now.
mhm,
Trauma gets stuck in your body. It's a very physical response, even if you're not being pummeled into the ground. And I'd also like to say, though, that in this case, I do think that the abuse was physical. I think that driving the way he did with someone else in the car put her in physical danger.
mhm,
Um, and I also wanted to say this earlier and didn't. Um, in domestic violence cases, rage driving with someone, like a husband with a wife or whatever, in a car like that is very typical behavior in domestic violence cases, like extremely typical. And I am not saying that Tim is a domestic abuser. I'm just saying it is a big red flag and it is serious. It's not just, oh, he made a mistake. Oh, he's from New Jersey. Like, no, no. And you need to be able to have some empathy and think about being in that situation and what that would feel like to be in that car and not have any control. And this person is driving recklessly, weaving,
He's big. He's
swearing.
a big person.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how terrifying that would be.
Yeah.
Um,
And then also mixed in with that is that he's your employer. There's a power differential.
yes. Thank you for
He's
bringing it.
bigger and louder, and all those
And
things.
you don't want to speak up or say anything because that's, again, it's your boss. And so how do you appropriately handle this? Yeah.
And she mentioned something that is another typical thing for women in these situations. She laughed. She found herself laughing in the car, like, and then looking at her computer. And that is a trauma response. It's called
Mhm.
fawning.
Mhm.
Um, she probably froze too. That's another trauma response. But women, and I had cancer this past year and went through cancer treatments, and I was in a lot of situations this past year with male care providers, medical care providers, where I found myself doing that as a survival mechanism. Like,
Mhm.
oh my word, I would be like in the ER in the middle of the night on a floor that was totally dark. There was one light on, one room open with a male, and we were the only people on the whole floor, and he was doing a sonogram on me. And I felt was inappropriate, brushed certain body parts that I felt it was so unnecessary.
Mhm.
And I froze. I couldn't say anything. And all I could find in my power to do was to be nice to him, to try to like, because I thought, I can't call him out on this. We're alone on this dark floor. He could do anything.
Mhm.
And I would have nobody would hear me. No, you just freak out and you don't know what to do. So I think, she pointed that out, in women, that is something that probably not just women, but people in traumatic experiences can tend to do as a response. And it is not a sign that nothing serious is going on. Number 3, I have that members and followers repeat ad nauseum that no church or organization is perfect.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's just a minimization. Like,
Heard that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
so yeah, no, you're not perfect. So who are you to
Mhm.
speak out about this? And I mean, yes, obviously nobody's perfect, but we do have to have these conversations, and we do have to call out bad behavior and hold each other accountable, you know?
And also with that statement too, that I've heard it used so many times. It's the most dismissive statement you can even say. Like, oh well, all churches. If you want to find a perfect church, it'll be one with no people. It's those kind of things, and you're like, oh, that's adorable. That's totally meaningless, and it's totally dismissive of any of the situations. And yeah, I,
Mhm.
I always hate
Yeah.
those like stupid, shitty responses that
Yeah. And
Christians are great at giving.
in religious abuse terms, we would call that sin leveling.
Mm.
Like, oh, all sins are equal, right? Like, you can't call me out on my child molesting because you're a glutton. I saw you overeat at supper last night, like
Mhm.
that type of thing, as if, yeah, we're all just imperfect human beings, and this sin is no worse than that sin. So,
Mm.
yeah, that does a lot of damage, whether it's put in spiritual terms or not.
That's
Number
what we
4,
also hear
oh,
that when we're dealing with, anything we say about the church is um, people will say, not at my church, and it's always
yeah,
this, either if we're guilty, all churches are guilty. So what, we're a center, what, all are centers. But, so if we're, but otherwise, that doesn't happen at our church. Never happens. Either they're not aware,
Mhm.
um, Laura always, if Laura were here, I wanted to say what she would say. She would say, but why don't you care if it's happening
Mhm.
somewhere else? That if there's abuse anywhere, Martin Luther King, JD said, um, injustice anywhere is, how's it go, JD?
He
And
asked me to do quotes on the spot, but I think it's an injustice. Injustice. Nah, I don't know. You can't do that to me.
yeah, basic justice anywhere is justice everywhere. What affects one of us affects all of us. And so if you say, well, we're not as bad, we're not any worse than anybody else, or it doesn't even happen here. It doesn't happen here. But
It
you
doesn't happen here means that those folks are already checked out and they have blinders on. and
Mhm.
they're not even going to look for that happening, because I think
Sleeping
there's
in church.
yes, it's a lot of it's just keep going, just keep going. We like being here. Don't rock the boat. Just keep going.
And
Right.
just consider, I mean, it doesn't mean it necessarily is, but consider that if you don't see it happening at your church might be better at hiding it. It might be
Mm.
really
Mhm.
devious, you know,
Yeah.
which was the case in our church. Like there are not words for how shocking it was what happened there, how close we were to these people,
Mm.
how much of a relationship we had, how involved we were, how well we knew these people, and had no clue for 12 years, had
Mhm.
no clue that this pastor, he was assistant pastor, was a convicted child molester. You think you would know, but don't think that. Like the people who abuse are so talented
Mhm.
at manipulating and deceiving.
I
And
think it
follow.
goes to the point you were mentioning earlier about we have to create an open space for dialogue, and we have to teach people that you need to speak up when you feel uncomfortable, whether that's whatever, even if it's a minor thing. I feel uncomfortable. Let's talk about it. Okay, that's healthy dialogue. Because, like you said, you mentioned this earlier in the context of like families. That's where most abuse happens, is in family members or close friends.
Mhm.
Churches are also a big one, but that's why it is important to like stress all the time. And like I have to do this with my students a lot, is just be like, no, you just have to tell me, because like I can't read your mind, even if it's uncomfortable, but like you won't get judged. Like there's nothing's going to happen to you besides me standing up for you if that's what you want. But
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
there has to be that level of dialogue.
And also, just even like Megan, you'd mentioned this, and this is what has made me cringe over the years. Just even churches just doing background checks on the folks that they're hiring. And I know churches are cheap and they don't want to do it, or they don't want to think about like, oh, that's the worldly stuff. No, just simply do that. Like if they're working around children, background check all 50 states. Do that. Just pay for it. It's worth it.
It is. And can I just say here,
And it doesn't do
when
everything, but
that
it's something.
it doesn't do everything. And
No.
I do want to throw this out there, my what happened in my experience. Because I had volunteered when the law changed in Pennsylvania and we had to get the background checks. I volunteered to help the people in our church get background checks and get that ball moving and all the things. And I was told that yes, this just had to be done on the people who were working with the children.
Mm.
Don't worry about the pastors, because they're not, working with children per se. And I was told, and if they were, our church had a school attached to it, and that the school would be taking care of that. But they weren't. It just that was the smoke screen. And then they knew at that point, they knew that he couldn't pass background checks, so they just didn't do them on him. But and then they argued, oh, he was never near kids. Meanwhile, he was superintendent of the school. He was acting as a substitute teacher in the school. My kids were roughhousing and sitting on his lap every time. I mean,
Mhm.
anyway, all that to say, like, yeah, the background checks is the least you can do, and you still have to be vigilant. Like,
Yes. Yes.
because there are loopholes and they find them.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart and
Yeah.
I are familiar with the Southern Baptist Convention pretty well. And when Roger Moore stepped down, that's not the right name, is it?
I think
Roger?
I think it is.
Okay.
Robert Morse.
Is it Roger?
Anyway, it makes me think of
A
double
Bond character?
seven. Yeah.
I know. See,
So I may have the name wrong. But
he's not as dashing as
his
Roger Moore.
last name is
Uh,
Moore,
yeah.
and Beth Moore kind of stepped down at the same time.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now. Sorry, I had a
Yeah.
different thing in mind.
Yeah. But he exposed the 700 instances of abuse with
Mhm.
Southern Baptist youth pastors, and he exposed all that the board, the executive board, the big guys, were covering it up. And it's been years since that report came out, and they are still just basically refusing to create a database of the offenders that they know of, because all our churches are autonomous and we can excuse it away unless you have women preachers, and then we want to disbar you from
Yep.
Southern Baptist Convention and all that hypocrisy and doubling down on racism and misogyny and so on. But they even refused to create a database of the people they know about, because we wouldn't want to hurt their careers or unjustly.
Yeah.
They're afraid of legal action is the biggest thing. But if Dom and I, if my husband and I can do it, how can they not do it? I mean, all we're doing is just sharing even publicly available information. Even if you just do the ones who are convicted, that's better than nothing. I think they should do ones that are allegations too, but that's another story. But yeah.
Yeah, and people always bring up false reporting, but false reporting, Megan, is about 2%, right?
Yeah, it's really low.
Really low.
Especially with children, it's even lower.
Because you just see this incident recently. What would she have to gain by false reporting? I mean, when people that report, obviously have ideas about ending their life pretty regularly, why would you put yourself through that? If it's not true, you don't have that much to gain, and we know we're going to experience it when we speak up, even as bystanders and allies or whatever. When we know we're going to suffer for reporting.
Yeah.
And so very few false report. 2%, that's a really low number. It means 98% of them are telling the truth. So it's in our best interest to believe them. Then if we find out they lied about it, then, maybe some weight should fall on them. But I don't think most of us realize what women are going through, especially with the power differentials and everything, just the historic abuse and misogyny and things like that. I got off on another rabbit trail. So.
Yeah. Well, there are lots of those to be had.
Maybe back to number 4.
Number 4, yeah. I have 8 total, by the way, in case that matters. I don't timing wise, but
this is good stuff, Megan.
Victim blaming. So members and followers continually point out that there are 2 sides to every story. They point out flaws and mistakes that the victim made and imply that that is equivalent to the abuses committed against them. This is also called sin leveling, which I brought up earlier in spiritual abuse terminology. In this case, RV was supposedly, now, whatever Tim said, she was habitually late. So that, basically she can't complain then about reckless driving because she was late, So of course he would be angry and may have made a mistake. This to me sounds a little like the classic, she was drinking or wearing provocative clothes, so she can't complain about being assaulted. He couldn't control himself because of her bad behavior. I saw that happen with, what people were saying. So that I found very upsetting. Never mind that the whole reason she was late in this instance, that morning that the rage driving happened, was because Tim was late getting her the script or whatever they were going to use. And she had to be working last minute to get it together. And then she ended up being late.
She worked most of the night.
Right? Yeah, she was up all night and then she got up early. And so, wasn't totally with it and lost track of time. Ended up being 40 minutes late, which then Tim was just really angry about.
So he was justified.
Right. And really not seeing in the mirror, like, okay, he was late getting her, and he's been late before too. Like, number 5, if the victim continues to be upset or continues to speak out about her problems, she is seen as problematic. Her mental health is called into question. And a lot of people were saying this, like, she has trauma. And I even saw someone say, she probably has borderline personality disorder. Were some of the comments I saw. And, that's just...
Shouldn't that even be more of a reason to treat her better?
As I say, if it were true, but you don't know. It shouldn't be
even
like
know
armchair diagnosing,
Right.
Yeah, that really bothers me when the person speaking out is, framed to be mentally infirm.
It drives me nuts when people do self-diagnosis as well, but especially when they try to diagnose other people as if they could even define the terms in the first place. Like, most of the people probably saying that probably don't even know what the diagnostic criteria are for that. In addition to that, it's like, even again, put that all aside, whether that's true or not, probably not, because it's online speculation. We know most of that's bullshit. But the person accused, if especially if they committed whatever assault or whatever we're talking about in this case, they probably have something like narcissistic personality disorder. But why aren't we bringing that up? The fact that they should be in a position of power because they're clearly abusing it. But no, I mean, again, that's just not how it works. But this goes back a really long way. I mean, you have back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, when women would be called hysterical because they were disagreeing with their husbands and thrown in asylums for the rest of their lives. So yeah, it's nothing new, but I think that's something that people don't come to grips with a lot, is like looking at the history of this, especially the use of like mental health, like misdiagnosis against women, as a weapon of the patriarchy, to put it bluntly.
Absolutely. You're right. That has happened for millennia.
Megan, does it
Yeah.
bother you that we're okay with a soldier having PTSD, which I think some of them do, or a lot of them do,
A lot of
and I think it's a valid diagnosis, but we can somehow accept that, and not everybody does, but somehow accept that, but we have a hard time accepting anything. Women aren't expected to be traumatized. They can't. We just somehow can't accept that in our mind, right? I mean, do
Yeah.
you feel that, or
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if a woman can't speak to her situation, authoritatively and clear, this is what happened and this is why it was wrong, and, lay out the bullet points, because she's like shaking and can barely talk about the situation because it's so re-traumatizing. And so people see that like PTSD and assume it to be, oh, she's lying. Look at her. She, you know, she can't even hold it together to speak about it. And, just that kind of stuff. It's maddening.
yeah? The reason I think about that so much is because, kind of in Greg Locke's situation and also in Tim Whitaker, um, or I'm sorry, Tony Jones, which was the initial part of this story. Um, they would be diagnosed, calling their wives crazy, but yet still staying out there, staying busy in ministry away from them, which was causing their quote unquote hysteria, which I've been learning a lot about that lately. It's really enlightening to look back at Freud and some of those people we respect somewhat, um,
There's,
that just dismissed women's trauma altogether.
yeah, and there's a term, it's falling out of favor, the the terminology, but I don't know any new terminology for it yet, but reactive abuse, what is the historical term? Like, so if there's a narcissistic abuser abusing a woman, it will literally like pretty much drive her crazy, and she gets so dysregulated from the abuse. And then if she starts trying to defend herself against the abuse, she looks like she's being abusive. And then the man's like, oh my gosh, look at how crazy she is. Look what she's doing to me.
Mhm.
She's screaming at me. She's hitting me. She's abusing me. I'm the victim. Never mind that he has been methodically over time just wearing her down, breaking her down.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's another dynamic that tends to play out. And then, yeah, they do whatever they can to dysregulate the victim and make them look crazy and be unbelievable. And outside of a domestic violence situation, predators in the church will choose people who already have, say, PTSD or some kind of trauma, knowing that this person is already unlikely to be believed. So if I abuse them and they come forward, I'm good. Nobody's going to believe them. So that's another dynamic that happens. I don't think
Yeah,
that happened in this situation at all, but
no.
it's just to throw out there.
Okay, we got some more to go.
Number 7, I think we're on.
Yeah.
Or seven.
6, I think.
Yeah.
Members and followers chastise the people criticizing the offender by saying they are overreacting, not being forgiving, or threatening the unity of the church or organization. That definitely happened in this case. I saw a lot of women actually saying this time around, like, are we really going to criticize everything? Don't you think we're just all traumatized from the church, so we're overreacting to this? And if we don't all stand together at some point, we can't do anything, you know? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I get what you're saying, but also no. Like, we're not, if anything, I think we're underreacting, which I know Rick Pidcock said in his article. Like, we're not going far enough in deconstructing this stuff because it keeps happening.
Yeah, so JD can verify if I really taught him this, but I tried to teach him as he's growing up. Things don't get better by doing nothing. The trash doesn't take itself out. And I try to teach him you got to do hard things to make progress, and so on. So I made a comment a couple of days ago that it's never going to be fixed until we stop and fix it. And I'm trying through my writing to encourage people, especially pastors, ex-pastors and ex-ministry workers and so on, before you start something new, get better. Some narcissists especially won't crave the stage, crave the attention, and it's hard to heal an MPD diagnosis, right? It's hard to heal that. But before you start something new and get new followers, let's stop and fix it. If this thing is really important, if the new evangelicals is the group to move us forward into the future, it's not going to kill them to stop for a few minutes. And that's the part of April of Joy that I respect. She did stop and pause her podcast at least for a little bit. And let's stop and fix it before we keep going and just keep putting more people under the bus. That's one.
Yeah, but it goes further than that too. It's not even stopping and fixing it. It's the idea. It's the structure itself. It's the structure and it's the aim of what we're doing. Totally. That has to be totally changed, and nobody wants to do that.
Right.
They don't want to just tear down everything and just begin to say, like, well, why does it have to be a hierarchy? Why does it have to be up and down? Why are we creating systems like why are we creating systems that necessitate to have followers?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be like the original idea of discipleship would just be like, okay, I've learned something, you can learn something too with me. Let's just keep moving. And we don't need to have a bunch of followers that we're just selling to and that are doing that, because I feel like it's also a disservice to a lot of people in those communities who just kind of want their own pop faith and get their own little pop faith nugget when they want it, and then they can tune out of it. And it's like weird fake community, but it's just like church, but it's easier than church. And, we need to have somebody in charge of it. And I think people don't want to ask the bigger questions of like, yeah, what if we bulldoze all of this and look at this completely differently?
Right. Nobody
wants to have that conversation.
Those groups don't ever heal anybody.
No.
They never, and I would say that even about our group, is just having a group called the Desert Sanctuary on Facebook doesn't necessarily heal anybody. What was more healing is when we talked to Adele the other night and just had an hour and a half conversation with her. That was healing for us, just to hear her heart. And I think it was good for her, for someone to tell her it's okay to be mad. In fact, you're not mad enough really right now. And for her to hear that, I think it was healing for both of us to do that. And I'm not the offender. I'm not the one that hurt her. But those groups, I don't think are what does it. I think it's relationships and things like that take time, and you have to slow down. Maybe put off publishing your book. Maybe don't produce some content for a couple of days. Brakes on, and let's talk to each other and let's solve it.
It's hard though.
It must be hard, and it must take some effort, because people don't seem to want to do that.
And it's not a good business plan.
Right.
Yeah.
No way to monetize your podcast if you don't produce a bunch of them. Right.
Let's say our whole society like props this up to like social
Mhm.
media. All of it is about the clicks that, it just programs us. We're wired that way, I think,
Mhm.
in our society. And I don't know the answer for how to tear it all down, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
suggest
Jade-
everyone becomes a Luddite, but
yeah.
I'm kind of serious. I do like advocate pretty hard for people logging off. Like I've logged off except for like posting photography, and like interacting with close friends, and it's been one of the best things for my mental health. Like,
I believe you.
I mean, and I don't, to be fair, I don't have like, I haven't gone through any like super traumatic things. So like that, I'm lucky in that regard. But like in terms of like day to day living, it's definitely one of the best things, or has been one of the best things for me. Because the internet is such a disgusting, toxic place.
Number 7, ready?
Yeah. Um, I think, Carl, you already brought this one up, so this will be quick. Members or followers insist that their situation is different, not as bad as others, and insist that their leaders are well-intentioned. Maybe we didn't deal with the well-intentioned part. Like, you don't know if someone's well-intentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good point. Very good point.
And
Yeah.
also aren't all leaders well-intentioned? I don't know a pastor that went into ministry and said, I'm going to hurt some people. I hope that I destroy some lives. I hope I can lie to a lot of people. I hope I can hide everything I do and do bad stuff and then pretend like I'm good. I don't think anybody goes in with those intentions, right? It's just the allure of power. It's the
Hmm.
high of righteousness, like we talked about. All of them had good intentions. It's you're not execute. That was the thing with Tim over the last few weeks. You're not learning anything. You're not showing that you're getting this.
Yeah, I really think this would have probably blown over fairly quickly, which I didn't want to see happen because I think people need to talk about it, but I kind of thought that it would if he had just been quiet and
Hmm.
hadn't just kept defending and like trying to save his image and doing all these crazy. I think he did a Instagram post, a picture of himself at the gym with the song Student Driver. It's not a song I was familiar with, but playing in the background and like poking fun at the situation, which is just
It's a dick
so
move.
immature. I
That
mean,
was a big move. Yeah.
it really
Yeah.
was. And I'm like, come on. And then calling, as you said, calling Rick Pidcock, who wrote the article, like calling these other people and basically trying to, Rick said he felt that he was a very angry energy.
I do. I don't think I'm leaking anything to say Rick is planning something else. So by the time this gets aired, it will probably be out. But I'm anxious to see it, to see what else he's uncovered. Rick Pidcock is a very good reporter. And he prints with Baptist News Global,
Mhm.
but also has his own Substack. And you'll see a lot of his posts and a lot of the other reporters referring back to his reporting. He's just very good. Met him in person. He's from Carolinas also, right? Somewhere up there.
I must know him.
Yeah, I met
He's in this.
all you guys know each other. You all look
Oh
alike
yes,
too.
yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Tough
I
track. Go ahead.
One more, if you're
All
ready
right.
for it.
Yeah.
Members and followers believe that their church or organization will do the right thing starting now, no matter how strong the patterns of the past. So, well, let's just wait and see. They just assume that, yes, they're okay. Now they know they're going to like take it on and do the right thing
Hmm.
without seeing any evidence of that. Very rarely happens.
Hmm.
I have seen a few churches handle things properly, but it's really rare.
That's the point,
It's
is that
sad.
they handled them though. They didn't just expect it to get better on its own.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Megan?
I know the board has made statements. There was a video statement on Instagram where they said all the right things, and then Tim had a little spiel at the end and, said he was so sorry. And there was a lot of discussion around that. Like, did he seem authentic? It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
It just doesn't matter. Words don't matter. Actions matter. And yeah, if you're that person that says, well, they're going to do the right thing, wait and see, then do that, wait and see. But we've already been seeing, I mean, it's been several weeks, and already he's doing more damage. So look at that and think, it very well may not turn around.
Yeah, the board members were disappointing. I mean, just to be honest. And I talked to several of them. They would just keep going back to, we got the report, we're going to do what the report says. But then they would say, hey, if you want to talk more about this, uh, let's have a phone call. And I said, no, not unless I said, if it's recorded and I can publish it, then I'll have a conversation with you. But I'm not going to go through that again. I'm not going to have all these quick conversations offline where someone's just talking at me and then nothing gets solved and nothing gets better. They think they can talk their way out of everything.
That's a great point and great recommendation. And I say that to people going through church abuse all the time. Just do not talk to the people from the organization outside of written emails that you have paper trail unless you record it. Just do not do it. And if they don't want to be recorded, well, then that's a pretty good sign that, they know that they're not going to be able to say anything that would really hold up to any scrutiny. Yeah.
If a narcissist is involved, I would say they always believe they can talk their way out of it. They believe
Absolutely.
they can manipulate you. That's how they got where they are, and so on. It's a pride issue. So can I ask one more question, please? Megan, we're so thankful for you and your time that you spent with us. I know it's not easy. And so we respect that. But can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Let all of us kind of consider this. But maybe have Megan close because she's the expert in the field here right now.
I feel like I'm not an expert. I just want to say that. I have a lot of experience. I don't have a lot of education. Like I just want people to know that. Like
Amongst us four, you're the expert completely.
Okay, I don't have any degrees in this, or I just want to put that out there.
It's a low bar with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at least in the mind of the mystic, experience is way better than assumptions that people have recorded and then taught to us. Experience is pretty good.
Yeah.
Oklahoma way of saying things. Experience is pretty good. So what is the way forward? How can we do better? JD said we'll just log off of social media. And I know that's not all you have to say, but also he's accused me of being an anarchist at times, just tear it all down. And in a way, we do need to do that. But what's the way forward? We start with my son JD down in the corner of my screen. How do we move forward, and what should we do better?
Is this just in general or specifically for the evangelical church?
Let's stay on that topic for now. For the evangelical church, for organized religion, deconstruction, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty biased. I don't think I think it's kind of for a lot of people it's kind of a crutch. I don't really think we need it. At least not in the way we do it. I would say if you're searching for like community or something and you want to do that kind of like if you're religious or spiritual or whatever, I don't know, get a place to go meet in a park and just do like an old Quaker style, or like like Plato's Symposium or something. You just debate back and forth or talk back and forth, have conversations, or let anyone come forward and like say their piece or whatever, if it's about scripture or whatever. I'm not a big fan of the church, so I don't really think we have a big need for it, but that's just me personally. But yeah, I think you just have to get rid of the hierarchy totally and just form like legitimate community as opposed to these like pyramid schemes that are like a faux community. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's a little bit frustrating because like I haven't been in it so long. So like to see people go back to it, like I get why people do. but yeah, I hope a lot of people can escape that. And if we need to, again, if we need to do something like that, then let's totally reimagine it, like Stuart was talking about earlier. Um, but it's going to be hard because most people would rather not.
Yeah, JD and I have a pretty good relationship, father and son, and so on. But you may not believe this, but we disagree about a lot of things, and we have over the years. One of the
Sometimes.
best things he ever said to me was, "Dad, you might want to think about this," and it just kind of coaxed me to broaden my understanding from my narrow view because I was in ministry and busy and doing God's work. And he said, "You might want to think about this. You might want to consider this. You might want to change those words, you know." And that relationship affected me in my spiritual walk, and also the way I treated people and what I believed and all those things. I can say that relationship, which hasn't always been perfect, right? Um, affected me greatly, changed
Mhm.
my life. When I was having a breakdown, who did I call? My community. And JD is one of my community. Um, in the long run, those kind of relationships, a friend that says to you, "You might want to consider this,"
Mm.
and speaking to you in a way a friend can. That to me, that's true community. Like JD just mentioned, it's not faux community, like Megan mentioned too.
Mhm.
Um, I believe him when he's saying that, because I know JD to be authentic and processes things in a way that are helpful. So,
Mm.
Stuart, what do you think? What's the way forward?
I think we all need to ascribe to the Akbar principle of things, which is it's a trap. When we look at church, so do not. In many ways, I think it goes back to questioning yourself. For all of us, that the church teaches us to not trust ourselves. That there's something wrong with us. That we need to come here to learn about it, and then somehow God will fix us. And so that situation in itself is leading us to be able to get duped and abused in that. And I would just tell people to we don't need someone. You don't need someone to tell you how to be you. And if we can't trust our gut, don't go into these situations that are going to challenge you trusting your gut. Now, I don't mean that we can't learn from others, that we can't have voices that we like and we ascribe to and we can glean from. But I think it's this idea that like I am their follower, like, and how somebody this is, oh, he's my spiritual leader, he's my guru. Why do you need a spiritual leader and a guru to tell you how to wipe your butt and how to move through the day? I don't know. And I think that we have this problem, and we've been told it in the Bible. Well, there's only one shepherd and we're a bunch of sheep. Stop being sheep. Start thinking for yourself. Like you can do some of this work on your own. You
Mhm.
don't have to go to these places, give your money, and conform to be able to find God. That's not at all, and that's a dead end street. So yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know if any of that made sense,
Yeah,
but
well,
it's
yeah, it did.
some
It's
word
great.
vomit. But
It's
yeah.
great advice. And we um, used to tell people that we were counseling to be married, don't go into a marriage until you can be comfortable with yourself. Don't unite with someone until you're okay being alone, and so on. I think that's good advice. There might be a few benefits from a bigger group,
Mhm.
like religion. There's some regulating aspects to it and things like that. But I mean, why not get better first? Put the oxygen mask on yourself. The group is never going to solve your problems, I don't think.
Or just join Food Not Bombs or something. Like you don't need to. It doesn't. I
Yeah.
don't understand this. It's just like such like myopic thinking of like I just have to again like keep going back to the same thing. I have to try to recreate this thing that I was a part of, but like better, but not really like change it in any fundamental way. Like you can't. It's really like having your cake and eating it too,
Mhm.
and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Megan?
I don't know that I have much to add. I mean, I feel like JD and Stuart really hit it really well. Like said just about everything. I mean, I tend to be a burn it all down person, which isn't always the best thing. But I know that when I notice one thing about that, like then I know what I'm against, but what am I for? Like, what's the new idea? Um, I think these are such important conversations to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting, Carl, that you said, JD really made you think differently about things because I've noticed that with my children too. I think a lot of the hope is in the younger generations. Not that obviously the wisdom of elders is important too, but boy, the older we are, the deeper those pathways are for us in our brains. Like we're wired, and not that there is neuroplasticity, there is hope, but sometimes it's a little harder for us
Mm-hmm.
to have the new ideas. You know, we tend to see this needs to end, but what's the new idea? I think that the younger people will have a lot to add to that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That they will have more ideas. We might be able to say, "Oh, okay, good idea, but this is how that we did that before, and this is how it worked out." I mean, I think, you know, it'll be a good back and forth, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just
Or
think
as
the
younger people, one of my daughters, Lily, we've had long conversations, and she understands so much about mental health
Mm,
and all of that stuff because she struggled silently for a while. And I don't want to tell her story or anything online. But, for me, this whole thing is kind of what that guy, his name's Bob Miner, Robert Miner, who he's a professor and so on, but he called it the high of righteousness. That we're right and God is on our side. We do that through different things. I join the right church, right? I'm in the right movement. I'm not in the old evangelicals. I'm in the new evangelicals. And now I have kind of that buzz of I'm in the right group. We're powerful. We're big. And even these silly things like this, there's all this trouble this woman caused us, which wasn't a big deal anyhow, because we have the high of rights. We're right and God is on our side, and it's going to be proven eventually that we're just suffering for God now, right? And all that, it's that high we get from being in a group that fades away, by the way, and has to be redone. And that you need to do more and more and more, find our peace, our power, our purpose within us first, and then see what we have to offer to a group. And what we may offer the group is, I think you got like I think you need to look at that, like JD told me, and then I don't know, at least we've healed a few of our wounds and we're better able to do that in a group. We do have a deep need for connection, and we can't deny that. We can't say we don't need people. We do need people. But I reserve the right to choose, who I'm associated with, who I give my time to, and so on. And certainly not any more narcissistic pastor or organized religion in any way, even if it's a Facebook group.
Justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
I remembered it.
Good job. Thank you for Stuart and JD for sticking by me. This early process of our new podcast is it's kind of hard at first, and we gotta kind of feel it all out and things like that. But more than anything today, we're thankful for Megan joining us. You are an expert. I don't care what you say. That sounded abusive, didn't it? No, I mean,
tell you what you are.
yeah,
All right, white man.
you're pretty widely respected, and I think it's because you fight for other people, and I know that's hard. I know you've been through personal things and so on, but we are very thankful for you coming and talk to us, help us out with this discussion. The listeners out there, keep tuning in and let us know what you think. I'm very grateful, as I said before, to Stuart and JD because doing this podcast has been therapeutic for me in a certain way. And so I appreciate you being involved and putting up with my inconsistencies. And, for the listeners out there, we love you and keep going.